Good morning. Happy Labor Day. I wanted to continue because I'm kind of on a roll now. And I just want to talk a little bit about patterns in Montana. So, one of the reasons that people come to see me is that I'm really good at seeing patterns and seeing how those patterns sabotage themselves. And I can see them myself as well. So, one of the patterns that I'm kind of, I don't want to say obsessed with, but I think a lot about is the notion of divide and conquer. And so in Montana, there's a lot of, not just Montana, but there is those who have money and power who want to keep it, and they use the divide and conquer strategy to pit people who could rise up against them. They pit them against each other. And so one of the interesting patterns that I've become aware of is what has happened in Montana because of deregulation. So I think it was 86, the legislature deregulated the natural gas industry. And then I think about a decade later, they deregulated electrical power. And so that created a whole snowball effect. And so one of the things I started to see the rise of in Montana was anti-government sentiment. However, I could never figure out where it came from, because it was against the federal government and not the state government. And it was actually, in the federal government did deregulate stuff back in the 80s because there was this greed stuff going on and these corporations started to have a bunch of power. So Montana deregulated power, and then energy prices skyrocketed. And here in the Flathead Valley, one of the results of that skyrocketing energy prices was that it affected the aluminum plant in Columbia Falls, and they laid off a bunch of people. And the other thing that was happening at the same time, I think there was timber stuff was happening. We were cutting less timber. There was also a rise of extremist right-wing radio talk radio. There was a rise of white nationalism and neo-Nazis in this neck of the woods, as well as, like I said, anti-government vitriol. And so it's only recently that I've come to understand that this pattern was all, as I perceive it, all goes back to when electrical and gas companies were deregulated and the cost of energy went up. So because of the deregulation, there was a backlash, because the workers lost their jobs and there was a lot of economic uncertainty. And at the same time, there was a rise of environmentalism, because what we knew then was that there was a cost to the oil and gas industry and its effect on climate, as well as pollution from I think it was 3 Mile Island, the nuclear radiation that killed people, and the incidences of cancer. And so there was an uptick in environmentalism, because they could see where this was going. However, with talk radio, this is again the world according to Velvet, with talk radio, they started demonizing environmentalists, environmentalists and workers really could have been on the same page and fought back against the corporations, but the workers bought the stuff that the right-wing radio was saying, that it was the environmentalists' fault and the government's fault. And so here in Montana, there was an incident, I think in the 2000s, late 90s, where there were some militia people who had a plot to kill the local sheriff. And I think people have forgotten that, how radical that seemed at the time, and now people are accepting it as normal, this radical anti-government sentiment, instead of realizing that we have to come together to solve the problems, and we have to reinforce our antitrust laws. So if I am elected, which I don't have a very good chance of getting elected, I'm really going to work on enforcing and updating Montana's antitrust laws, because we have a history of being exploited for our natural resources by big multinational corporations, and it's happening right now. And it's not the only industry that is being taken over and gobbled up by huge corporations. So anyway, don't let them divide you against your neighbors. Turn your neighbors, the strangers, into neighbors. We're all neighbors here, and we have to get through this time together. Otherwise, we may not get through this time.